that better? Okay. All right. Thank you all for coming this evening. My name is Barbara Graham. I am the solicitor for the Keystone School District, and I have been asked by the board this evening to kind of advise you what the ground rules are, because as you probably do know, we don't usually get this many people at a Finance and Facilities Committee meeting, but nonetheless, we're thrilled that you're here this evening. We're thrilled that there's so much interest and concern in the community about decisions that are important decisions that need to be made or need to at least be discussed in this school district. This is a Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. What that means is we don't follow the same level of formality as other meetings. So we're just going to tonight go through what the process is going to be. I'm going to lay out the ground rules for making public comments. I'm going to tell you what you can expect before the public comments, and then we'll get started. First of all, I'd like to note for the record that present this evening are 7 members of the 9-member board. Oh, here comes Mr. Allward. We have 8 members. Mr. Allward. Mr. Allward is not late. He's out of town of business, so we're very lucky that he was able to make it here this evening. Mr. Lloyd is not well, which is why he's not here this evening. Also at the table are Dr. Bennett, the district superintendent, Gwen Walker, the director of fiscal services, Charmaine Massett, the reporting secretary, and me. Okay. What we're going to do this evening is we're going to have some comments made, some presentations made by various members of the administration. They're going to be addressing the board, providing information on some of the concerns, some of the issues that relate to the possible closure, and I do mean possible, closure and or consolidation of elementary schools in this district in future years. There will be no voting tonight. There's no specific agenda. There's no decision making tonight. Tonight is an information receiving opportunity. In addition to receiving information and data from the administration, members of the administration, the board will also hear input from you to the extent you choose to give us input. We have, I believe, at least 25 members of the community who have been asked to speak tonight, and we will get to that part. I'm going to give you opportunity to speak, of course, consistent with some parameters we'll set up. But this is not going to be a dialogue. There is not going to be a question and answer period. The board will hear your questions. They may not answer them tonight. It may be that some of the questions that you came to this meeting with will be addressed by the presentations you'll hear, and it may be that some of the comments, I would bet some of the comments you made will be some of the same comments that that members of the community around you will be making as well. And you need to tell me if you can't hear me, because I can't tell from here. Okay. What's going to happen is Mrs. Randazzo, the board president, is going to make some comments. She's then going to turn the floor over to various members of the administration to make some comments. After that, we're going to take public comments. Because of the size of the group and the number of requests to speak, we are going to honor that aspect of the board policy that says each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak, and we will take priority those individuals who have signed up to speak. I will tell you, as I said before, we have at least 25 who have signed up to speak. Even though the policy says 20 minutes total, we're of course going to waive that this evening so that you can have an opportunity to speak. But I will tell you with all due respect before the fact that I will cut you off at the 3-minute mark so that we can get to the next speaker. Because we're going to have to do that because of the size of the group, okay? All right, unless there's any other comment that Mrs. Randazzo wants to make preliminarily, I'm going to turn it over to her and ask her to begin asking for input from the administrators. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Miriam Randazzo. I am president of the Board of School Directors, and I'm very pleased to have you here this evening. I just would like to go ahead and to give you a little background about why we're here this evening and some background as to this process. I will start with the background of the building utilization study. The architectural and engineering firm of Robert Kimball and Associates was hired by the Board of School Directors in 2008 to conduct a comprehensive analysis of the district's 5 buildings, facilities, and mechanical systems to learn more about our school district through knowledge-based workshops with the board, administration, teachers, support staff, and residents through public meetings and to provide a detailed report of their findings. The primary purpose of the community public meetings was to inform our taxpayers of the current challenges facing the district, i.e. population decline, dwindling student enrollment, we're expected to lose 200 students in the next decade, declining tax base, flat revenue streams, building maintenance needs, and rising operational costs. The Kimball Building Utilization Report findings. Summarizing this report, all 5 buildings need upgrades, some more costly than others. For example, Myrtle Avenue Elementary needs a new gym floor, the floors and walls in all bathrooms remodeled, bottom floor tiles replaced, 3 new compressors, and building envelope repairs to address the leaking front windows. In addition, Aiken Elementary needs replacement of the front steps, asphalt at the top circle and basketball areas, and a sewage ejector tank liner. In order to address these building needs, the district is facing a price tag at several million dollars. Thinking about these necessary building repairs, Dr. Shelby Stuman's demographic study found that the enrollment will continue to decline into the long-term future, to the tune of 200 students in the next decade, which I alluded to earlier. In the state of our district budget, running 5 underutilized buildings is becoming more and more of a challenge. Kimball's list of options. Kimball provided a preliminary analysis and an options report breaking down number of classrooms, student population sections, new construction requirements, and grade alignments for each building configuration. From this analysis, they compiled a list of 17 building options. At the January 23rd, 2010 school board retreat, the Board of School Directors and the administration discussed the building utilization study in depth, the educational and financial strategic goals of the district, and Kimball's list of 17 building options. From this discussion, we agreed unanimously to eliminate the following options. We eliminated what we call the status quo options, and that is everything that was the same, we eliminated. In other words, we can't afford to keep things the way they are and meet our budget. That would have been number 1 and number 12 on the list. We also eliminated options adding brick and mortar additions. That is, we eliminated the options where we had to build or add on. Our rationale was that we couldn't go to the public and ask for more money if we were going to downsize. Also, we eliminated the options adding portable classrooms, and that would be because of the budget impact. By eliminating these options, which is most of them, 2 options remained. The 2 options that remained were number 4, to close Aiken, and number 7, to close Myrtle. Okay, so the option of choice or the best option for Keystone Oaks. Before I continue with the options discussed, I believe it is important for our residents to understand that the Board of School Directors' philosophy remains to only raise taxes as a last resort, while constantly searching for creative ways to save costs, as evidenced by these district initiatives. We have sold Burridge School for $200,000. We have pulled out of the Pathfinder Consortium for $360,000. We sold the bus garage for $350,000. We did a bond refinancing for $1.3 million. We closed our buildings during the summer to save money to the tune of $50,000. And we constantly have ongoing staff analysis and course analysis as to what we offer our students. The board and administration work very diligently to manage controllable costs as much as we can. We remain proud of the fact that we have not raised taxes in 5 years. I also believe that it's important to our residents to understand that the Board of School Directors' strategic goal is to maintain and improve the current overall educational programming while remaining fiscally responsible to our taxpayers. After taking into account Kimball's building report, our underutilized buildings, and our current long-term budget challenges, and the remaining architect options, the board has chosen to explore the possibility of closing 2 elementary buildings, Aiken and Myrtle, and concentrate our resources on 1 elementary building. We believe that by closing the oldest and neediest building, Myrtle, and the most underutilized building, Aiken, we will strengthen both the financial health of the district as well as the overall educational program into the long-term future. If we do not pull together our district resources, we believe that either our overall K-12 educational programming would be compromised, or we would be forced to levy a significant tax increase to our residents for several years. While we were certainly notable financial considerations to ponder as we review this process, we strongly believe it is imperative to at least consider this option because of its education opportunities for our district students, namely equalizing class size, the expansion of Title I services, and less travel time for our staff. In addition,
Ladies and gentlemen, please, we very much want to hear your comments tonight at an appropriate time. We would ask that you extend to members of the board and the administration the same courtesy as listening to their comments and not shouting out, as they certainly will extend to you when you make those comments. Thank you.
In addition, we believe that by pulling our resources into 1 elementary building, we would not only brighten our financial picture, but also better allow us to meet the strategic goals of the Keystone School District. That is fiscal responsibility, geographic balance, operational efficiency, education drives facilities, and current long-range capacity and value. Summarizing, the board believes it is more important to put the district's resources toward programs and not buildings. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Bannock, since we have some principals here, and I'd like for him to explain why they're here.
Thanks, Mrs. Randazzo. As the discussions unfolded about the various options, what seemed to be an appealing option to you, the board, was a K-4 building, a 5 to 7 building, and an 8 through 12 building. Those options really were counter to the way we did business in the Keystone School District. And from that recommendation, the architect morphed another option, and that was to look at some of the natural breaks that we have with respect to curriculum and the way we deliver instruction. And so what came to the forefront in the discussions, as you know, was a K-3 building, a 4 to 6 building, a 7-8 building, and then a traditional 9 to 12 high school. In keeping with what Mrs. Randazzo stated, eliminating any brick and mortar construction or portable classroom, if that is an option that the board chooses, Dorm 1 Elementary would become the K-3 center. The current middle school building would become the intermediate center, housing grades 4 to 6. The high school would house grades 7 through 12. 7-8 would be petitioned off as a 7-8 would be partitioned off as a separate building, and 9 through 12 would run as a traditional high school. So knowing that that was a possibility, I then asked the building principals to do some homework as to what that might look like. How would we deliver the instruction? What might be the issues that they would confront? So here this evening, with the homework that I've given them, are all 5 of our building principals. And we're going to begin this evening with our 3 elementary principals. We have all 3 here this evening. We have all 3 elementary principals here. We can start with them this evening. The 3 of you would step to the podium, please.
Good evening, board members. As Dr. Van said, he asked us to do some homework on the proposed plan for our K-3 building. The current proposal of a K-3 building house at Norman Elementary would hold 7 sections of kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, with an average class size of approximately 20 students per class. Some of the special programs would allow us to offer full-day kindergarten. After-school daycare could be provided until 6 o'clock each day. Title I will be offered to all children. Currently, Title I is not offered to students at Aiken Elementary. And all special teachers and itinerant teachers will not be traveling. Therefore, we would not be losing periods of instruction with their travel time each day. In the research, we found very similar grade configurations of neighboring districts, including Chartiers Valley and South Fayette. And also in the 3 communities, currently, the students all play sports together. They are in activities such as cheerleading, so the adjustment will be minimal. The focus on the primary center would allow us to focus on primary education solely. Also with that, we would have to offer 3 lunches, which happened at Gorman Elementary before, was not a problem. And the busing of the children in grades K through 3 would be a more appropriate group of students on those buses. We looked at the bus times, and the approximate longest for Howard distance would be about 20 minutes at the furthest points to the Dormont site.
Good evening. Dr. Bannock asked me to look at the current middle school and for the configuration of grades 4, 5, and 6. And with our current population, the current middle school is able to accommodate the current population of the Keystone students in grades 4, 5, and 6. And we would have 7 sections of each grade level. We would have 1 grade level per floor. The 4th grade would be on the bottom floor, the 5th grade would be on the top floor, and the 6th grade would be on this main floor here where the office is. Also there for special education services, each grade would have a grade-specific special education classroom. In all the 3 elementary buildings currently, there are cross grades. Some have 1 through 5 special ed, some have 1 to 3, 4 to 5. Now you'd be able to be grade specific to special education. Also speech, Title I, gifted, English as a second language, art, music, and gym would all be accommodated in the current middle school 4, 5, and 6, as would a full-time guidance counselor and a nurse. What was asked a lot during the 3 community meetings was that 6th grade would have an elementary schedule. By an elementary schedule, I mean 13 periods of language arts, 8 periods of math, 3 days double period, 5 periods of science, and 5 periods of social studies. 6th graders would then keep that elementary schedule. It would be all the way through 6th grade. One of the big aspects was, how are you going to keep 7th through 12th grade out of the building? Well, the outer limits, as some people know what I'm talking about, those classrooms will not be needed in the current configuration of 4, 5, 6. You would only have 2 entrances. The McNeely side, and that would be for walkers and for parents who choose to drive their students to school. And then the, I'll say the Kelton side over here in the circle where all the buses would come into. We would move the so-called lift gate, move it back a little bit, and have all the buses come in that way. There would be 3 lunches. 1 lunch specifically for 4th grade, 1 for 5th, 1 for 6th, with approximately about 160, 170 kids in each lunch. 4th and 5th grade would have their recess period. We would need to build a playground. 6th grade would not have recess, but they would have a so-called club period. Technology, there's a computer lab on each floor. Each grade level would have its own technology lab. We would have our own bell schedule, similar to what Dormont Elementary has not. Grades 4, 5, and 6 would all ride their own buses. They would not be on buses with 7th to 12th grade. As I said before, the drop-off would be in front of the building in a circle for the buses, and any parent wishing to pick up would be on the McNeely side over here. Thank you.
Good evening, board. Good evening, parents, families, and friends. Thank you for taking the time tonight to come to the meeting. In addition to being a building principal, Dr. Bannock asked me to speak on behalf of the special education programs. So at this point, these are the positives with the new configuration. The ESL program, which is the English as a second language, there would be minimal teacher travel, more collaboration with regular ed teacher, and more student instructional time. There'll be appropriate chronological instruction groups based on chronological age. An example would be K through 3 and 4 and 6, not just K through 5. The opportunity to group students instructionally in one classroom at a grade level an ESL teacher assisting with classroom modification. An example would be the current ESL kindergarten students, there's one at Aiken, 2 at Dormont, 1 at Myrtle. With the reconfiguration to the ESL students will all be in one kindergarten. And then also additional ESL resources such as computers, software, curriculum, etc. will be available in 2 locations compared to 3. Under the gifted program, the positives would be, again, with a smaller gifted population, there will be more opportunities for cluster grouping. There will be horizontal enrichment and extension of core learning in classroom. Example, we would be streamlining curriculum to allow for quick mastery, providing time for in-depth study of major ideas and themes, integrating enrichment activities within and across the curriculum. Also, again, the minimal teacher travel, which is probably one of the main positives. There'll be more collaboration and consultation with regular ed teachers on topics such as curriculum compacting, flexible pacing, and the development of student products reflecting their analysis and synthesis of knowledge. We do have a math coach. Again, minimal teacher travel, more collaboration with regular ed teachers, the opportunity to combine grade level instruction groups, and hopefully a classroom of his or her own instead of maybe working in a large or small lunchroom or wherever possible. The special ed program itself, positives, the pooling of instructional and support resources, classroom aids will be in 2 buildings rather than 3 and utilized more efficiently. There'll be small special ed classes which can be combined still within the caseload of the guidelines. Scheduling special needs students in same classrooms at grade level to provide additional special education teachers and aid support. Better opportunities for related service providers such as speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, counseling, etc. to address small groups in fewer settings with less travel time required. And finally, our autism population. The positives would be an increased pool of trained autistic teachers working together in the building, sharing ideas, utilizing the training and expertise that the Keystone Oaks School District provided them through various conferences. And finally, more efficient use of the outside consultation coming to 1 building instead of 3. Those are the positives.
Now, I'm certain many of the board members have questions of the elementary principals, so before we move on, Mr. Connick, if you have any of those questions, you may want to direct them to the 3 principals.
I brought up, can you hear me? Try this. There was a concern that I had brought up at last week's board meeting just regarding childcare configurations. I have a child who's in Myrtle currently and another one coming up to be in Myrtle. And I know that there's some contracts that parents have with certain daycare providers to provide transportation. The Castle Shannon Learning Center, I believe, on Myrtle Avenue, they provide
after-school daycare up to fifth grade, I believe. Is there any consideration given to that and some other facilities that there have been some contracts with in the past?
Currently at Dormont Elementary, we have an after-school daycare that runs in one of the rooms at Dormont Elementary. Every year I get phone calls from residents, students, that people have students at Aiken and also students in Myrtle asking, can we come to that facility for after-school daycare? And right now it's only for the Dormont Elementary students. It's run by a private company, Mount Lebanon After-School Daycare, which rents a room out of Dormont Elementary. That would now be available to all people in Myrtle, students from Myrtle, students at Aiken, and students at Dormont, and that would still be available, at the configuration of Dormont. Plus, you can look at that, having it here at the 4, 5, 6 building. And from past experience, the daycare centers would, for students to come with gladly bus their students from any facilities back to Castle Shannon or whatever.
So care would be still given up to fifth grade? Or sixth, you said sixth grade?
Right now it's only K to 5 at Dormont, because that's all we have, but it would be good on the 6th grade.
Thank you.
Any further questions of board members? For principals, Mr. Allward?
Is it on? All three talk about sections of the school, class sections. My question would be to all three schools, is there enough feasible room if 6th grade was to go back to the elementary schools?
You're talking, if you would, right now, at Dormont Elementary, you have K to 5, and you would say you would keep the 5th graders there for 6th grade?
No, I'm saying, does Dormont have rooms to have 6th grade there, so it'd be K to 6?
In its current form, just for Dormont Elementary students, just for the students at Dormont, I could answer, that would answer would be yes.
What about Aiken or Myrtle?
Myrtle, no.
Right now, it would depend on our special education population, which would allow room at Aiken, and I don't know where those numbers will be next year for life skills, so we could possibly.
There's a possible. Okay, thank you.
Any other board members? Questions of the principal?
One of the questions that I know you all are being asked is about transportation time. So we asked the transportation department to give us some rough figures on the amount of time the children would be on the buses if they were to go from their current stops in Greentree to either this location or the Dormont Elementary location. And the way they provided this is comparable runs for a high school bus. So, for example, bus 1 in Greentree is Green Lawn, Susan, Sheila, Glencoe, Parity, Norris, Dale. That run, the bus garage tells us, is roughly a 15-minute run. If that run were to go the same stops and come to this site, they have that timed out at 25 minutes because that's what the high school bus takes. So the child who currently rides bus 1 from those stops to Aiken would be on bus 15 minutes. If they were to come to this site, it would be 25 minutes. If they were to go to Dormont Elementary, it would be some number less than 25, but some number greater than 15. It's just another example that the Transportation Department has given us. Is bus number 2, that's McMonagall, Greentree Road, Sheldon, Park Edge, School Street, Poplar, Churchill, McKenna. They have that run timed out on a daily basis at 14 minutes from that first stop on McMonagall to Aiken. And they have that timed out as a high school bus, the same stops coming here as 30 minutes. So those children will be on the bus, based on what the Transportation Department tells us, not 14 minutes, but 30 minutes. I know that you all, the board members, you're also getting a lot of questions that have come your way about property value. And before we had Mr. Connor come up, it seemed like something that we needed to address, so I asked Mr. Cromie to make a couple calls. We spoke with one realtor. This gentleman's name is John Selko. John Selko is a Caldwell banker, a real estate agent. John says it's his experience that people tend to choose school districts rather than individual schools. We also spoke with Maria Lane. Maria Lane is...
Excuse me, if you folks would allow, Dr. Bannock is continuing to speak. You will be able to hear him if you just keep your comments quieter, please.
Maria Lane is a 20-year agent from Caldwell Banker in South Hills solely. She says that the closing of an elementary school will not devalue anyone's property. And she's not aware of any instance where an elementary center in and of itself has impacted property values in any way. Then we went one step further and we spoke with Scott Churchill. Scott Churchill is the past president of the Metropolitan Pittsburgh chapter of appraisals. We tried to get his opinion as well. And his comment to us was that test scores and tax rates are more closely tied to property values than the presence or absence of a community elementary school. Now I know that some of you have shared with me that there is a website that rates schools that you mentioned, and I believe that site is called School Digger. There are many comparable websites, psk12.com, Great Schools, NeighborhoodScout.com. And I think that site sells Dormont and Myrtle short. And I'll tell you why. In our conversations with the realtors, we know that realtors pay attention to the school rankings as they're printed in the Pittsburgh Business Times. I'll share with you the rankings from the Pittsburgh Business Times for the same time period that School Digger uses. 2007 school year, now Pittsburgh Business Times uses the PSSA scores, as does Pittsburgh Business Times, both use the PSSA scores. Fifth grade, of the 300 schools ranked, Myrtle ranked 76, Dormont 106, Aiken 125 in their fifth grade scores. Fourth grade scores, Dormont ranked 42nd, Myrtle ranked 89th, and Aiken ranked 208. On the third grade scores, Aiken ranked 29th, Myrtle ranked 101st, and Dormont ranked 156th. Then we look at the scores from school year 2008. Again, same school year the School Digger used. Fifth grade scores, Myrtle ranked 50 out of 288. Dormont ranked 87, and Aiken ranked 136. Fourth grade scores, Myrtle ranked 64th, Dormont ranked 97, Aiken ranked 104th. Third grade scores, Aiken ranked 54th, Myrtle ranked 93rd, and Dormont ranked 108th. The reason I share that with you is not only do the teachers in Greentree work hard, but so do the teachers in Dormont and Myrtle. Those numbers can be found in any back issue of the Pittsburgh Business Times. It's all in print. Next we have Mr. Connick. Mr. Connick will speak on the 7-8 building that we are going to talk about. Again, when Mr. Connick is finished, if you have any questions for him, he'll be happy to take those.
Good evening. My responsibility was to look at a way for the 7th and 8th grade school to fit into the high school facility. I worked with Mr. Hagee and Mr. Covey to do this. What we found is that the 7th and 8th grade classes could occupy the second floor of the senior high school nearest the current middle school. We found that the placement of all core classes in this area would allow easy access to the common areas such as the elective wing, the cafeteria, the library, and the gymnasium. Foreign language classrooms could be moved directly outside of that 7th and 8th grade school. This space would have a main office and a guidance office and would be separated from the 9 through 12 section of the building by doors. Also, it would not be accessible to the senior high school students for use as a pass-through. Also, the 7th and 8th grade classes would not eat their lunches with the senior high students. The projected enrollment of those 7th and 8th grade classes of 344 could fit into their own lunch period. Some other measures that could be taken to minimize the contact of the junior high students with the senior high students would be that we could give designated periods for electives for 7th graders so that they would be the only ones in that elective wing at a particular time. Also, a slightly different bell schedule could eliminate the contact in the halls and again add to that separation. Teachers will have purely 7th and 8th grade schedules based on our preliminary observations, and that would mean that far fewer teachers would be teaching 9th graders or 6th graders than is currently the case. The sharing would not have to occur with this new 7th and 8th grade line.
Keith, with respect to the doors, have you had any conversations with the fire inspector?
We did. Mr. Hagee and myself, we met with the fire inspector and showed him the approximate location of the doors with the rooms that were needed. And again, double doors that open in either direction were acceptable in this location.
He didn't see a problem with that?
He did not.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Conner?
Yeah, I have one question. The section of the second floor, what section of the square are you talking about cutting off for 7th and 8th?
If you were coming in the main office of the high school, it would be the top left-hand portion. So that would include 2 of the science rooms in the back, the hallway that comes towards the main office, and then around the corner to the library.
So from the library all the way up?
We need a couple of science rooms through that hallway in the back of the building.
Okay, so then they would go and use the cafeteria, the same cafeteria as the high school?
That's correct.
Okay, then how would they go to the shop classes and fine arts down there?
There's a staircase that's located in that corner, actually the corner that would be isolated from the 9 through 12 section.
By the loading dock?
Right. That staircase would then go down those steps out to the loading dock and then proceed to that electric wing. The same thing would be the case. They would use that same staircase to access the cafeteria and the gymnasium. In order to access the library, they have a common area that would require the use of the other stairs in front of the building.
Okay, but that's still the same hallway that the high school students use to go back and forth to shop and fine arts?
That's correct. That's why we looked at designating a different bell schedule for the possibility.
And you mentioned how many students would be in 7th and 8th?
Based on current enrollment of it would be the 7th and 8th grade in those years, that would be 344.
And that's how many lunches?
It would be 1 lunch for the 7th and 8th grade. For 2 lunches.
Excuse me. Mr. Allward, do you have any more questions?
The physical education classes would happen in the current high school building.
Would you repeat that answer, the question you answered?
The question was the phys ed classes for the 7th and 8th grade students, where those would take place, and they would take place in the current high school gym.
Any other questions from the board for Mr. Conner? Okay, next will be Mr. Hagee.
Good evening. It's kind of a fascinating story. The last couple of weeks that we've been working on this project and really looking at this has really brought to light sort of my personal journey here at Keystone Oaks. What's amazing, this is my 13th year at the high school. And when I first came to Keystone Oaks High School, we had 1,100 students here in the high school, in the current building. And this year, right now, we have 760 students. And next year, when the graduating class leaves and the new 8th graders come in, we will have less than 700 kids in 9 through 12. And I need to sort of talk to you a little bit about that, because sometimes that's just numbers. But when I first came here 13 years ago, the graduating classes were 260 kids, 268 kids, 270 kids. And then we faced some declining enrollment, and then it was 240 kids, and 248 kids, and 250 kids. And now, this is the last class. The class of 2010 is the last class that's graduating over 200. There's 228 students in the class of 2010. And when you compare that to the class of 2014, that's this year's current 8th graders. It's hard to believe you're saying class of 2014. But they only have 166 kids. So you're talking about a class of 166 instead of 266. So sometimes we have to think about that a little bit, because how the heck are we fitting 7th and 8th graders into a high school? Well, the way that's happening is I currently right now have 14 empty classrooms sitting in the high school that we don't use. 3 of which are gorgeous science labs that we remodeled 8 years ago. They're sitting empty right now. So the space is in the high school to accommodate the 7th and 8th graders. And just also to give a little context to this, the last couple years, and I'm going to use this current school year right now, is we currently have 24 7th or 8th grade classes being taught in the high school building. 7th and 8th graders leave the middle school for 24 different classes and come to the high school and are taught by a teacher that their room is within the high school walls. Those classes include electives, foreign language, math, English, and science. And again, I've really tried to find out how this would negatively impact the high school, giving up these rooms and giving up these hallways. And really, the only thing I can come up with is that we would have to not offer the TV video curriculum to our high school kids. Now, what does that mean? First of all, we've talked about that openly in the Education Committee the last few years. We have decided not to put much money into the TV video studio that is aging and not putting money in to upgrade that, which is pretty expensive, because of the number of students that are picking that. We are down currently this year, I think we have 8 high school kids who use that studio. So if, a couple years from now, we decide to make this move, and the high school does not have access to go over into the TV studio, which would be in the heart of the 456 building, then we would have to eliminate that. But as you guys know, we talk about that often at the Education Committee. With all that decline in enrollment and all those less students, we have not eliminated any program from the high school to this point. And that probably is the lowest enrolled curriculum that we have is the TV studio. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thanks.
I have a question for Mrs. Walker. I'd like to ask, what impact does our existing debt play into this discussion? I think that's important to ask.
This one works? I'm sorry. We've talked about this a number of times. Our debt exists because we have used borrowed funds to renovate the buildings. Unfortunately, we're not in a position where we can do major capital improvements with the funds that we use to operate the schools, so we have to borrow. A lot of the options that you all have talked about that call for additional construction would require us to go out and borrow more funds, which would increase our debt service.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Dr. Van, I just had a question. Some people are claiming that they're requesting information and not getting it. What do you say to that?
We've had numerous requests under the Freedom of Information Act for one individual. We have complied with the policy. The problem is that that individual has asked us directly and indirectly to violate that policy, and we've not done that.
Thank you. And the other question I'd ask Dr. Van is, what impact will this decision have on our property values?
I think I addressed that. One of the things I know that you hear often in some of these emails you mentioned is that if such a move were to occur, that you've been told you might see an exodus from the communities. So what we did is we contacted Chuck McCartney, and Chuck is the Public Relations Director in the Chartiers Valley School District. And as you know, the Chartiers Valley moved to an elementary center as well. And his comments was that they based, since the time they put that elementary center together, they have experienced no decrease in their enrollment. As a matter of fact, he can't contribute this to the elementary center. They've actually seen a slight increase in their enrollment.
Thank you.
Gwen, could you just take a brief moment and explain the percentages of taxes collected for the district?
You all asked me that question on a number of occasions in the last several weeks, so I asked Jordan Tax, who has access to all three communities through the Allegheny County Certified Tax Assessment Roll. The total taxable value for the three communities breaks down as follows. Castle Shannon is 28.12, Dormont is 26.13, and Green Tree is 45.75. That is including commercial and residential. You've also asked me to share with the board the residential values and the percentages. Castle Shannon is 31.28, Dormont is 33.96, and Green Tree is 34.76. That was the information that you all asked me to provide to you.
Sorry, Glenn, what was the second percentages for?
They are for residential properties only.
Do the board members have any questions of clarification for Mrs. Walker? I see some confused faces, that's what I'm asking. No? Okay. Mrs. Randazzo has indicated that Dr. Bennett, there are no further presentations from members of the administration this evening. Okay, now then would be the opportunity for members of the public to speak. As indicated before, we have a number of requests to address the board. I've been told there's a list that has been prepared in the order in which the requests were received. So if you made the request, you're on the list, and it's just in the order in which it was received. As noted previously, since there are a number of you who have asked to speak, we will limit you to 3 minutes. And of course, these are comments to the board, these are questions to the board, but it is not a situation necessarily where you will get answers this evening. This is an information gathering meeting. As I said previously, there's no public vote anticipated. There's a detailed procedure that the board would have to follow in the event it moves affirmatively to close one or both buildings, and that would be a public process of which you would have prior notice. This is just information gathering. So at this time, Ms. Randazzo, shall we begin? The first individual is, and if I mispronounce your name, I will apologize in advance. Janet Donnelly.
to address the board of directors as well as the public here tonight. In the past, the school board has said their constituents have not expressed concern over the matters at hand. Since this is an information gathering meeting, I'd like to show how important neighborhood schools are to all of us here. I would like every person in this auditorium to stand if you're in favor of keeping neighborhood schools. Are not standing. I find that very puzzling. As you are elected to represent this audience, your constituents have made their desires for neighborhood schools clear. The board is obligated to listen and act according to the will of their constituents. There are many other aspects that need to be considered other than just the buildings. I hope everyone reads the renovate or replace flyer that was passed out. This was written by the PA Department of Education and other government officials in Pennsylvania, and it talks about the effects of consolidation on communities. Much more far-reaching than just buildings. Our students, our communities, and the devastation that can cause to each and every one of the communities affected. I am speaking as a Braintree parent and concerned citizen, but my concern goes beyond Braintree. It goes to part that we're the most underutilized building, but we don't have space to add our graders back or to add on a full day kindergarten to the Kimball report. We have to add
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Donovan. Now, Mr. David Omrick.
Thank you. Since you're not allowed to answer our questions, I think I'm going to talk to you guys. How about that? I don't have a lot of time, and frankly, I was going to tone down what I was going to talk about, but after about the first time, I'm just going to let it rip. So please bear with me. First of all, I'm an engineer. I read reports like Kimball did for a living. I don't think we're reading the same report, Mr. Rendazzo. What you said, it doesn't document the facts. I've read the report, and most of what they want to do is optional. So a few things need to be done, not $1 million worth, and that's a fact. I've had other engineers that I know read it and reach the same conclusion. So we have a disconnect. Sorry, I don't want to work off my notes here. The other thing is, our taxes haven't been raised. Well, that's true. In fact, our taxes haven't been raised for quite a while. But you really need to understand why. Now, I'm the person who was trying to get the information that they were talking about, and it has been very difficult, but something you need to know. I finally got my hands on the debt and how it's broken down, and oh my gosh, it's very complicated. I solicited the help of a guy with 30 years of municipal bond experience, and he's still scratching his head 2 days later. He promised to get back to me. A couple of things he did point out, though. He said he wanted me to talk to you about this tonight. He said, if people ran their households like this, they quickly find that they can no longer afford to keep their homes. We have routinely refinanced and refinanced and refinanced again our bond debt, and had to give the illusion that our taxes aren't going up, when in fact we're incurring more and more debt to the point that eventually we simply can't incur anymore. And that's how we got where we are today. Okay. Sorry? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so, and this is back to the board. Clearly, community activism is not dead. We got a lot of people here. We've got attorneys, we've got engineers like myself, we've got average working day people, all would love to help, all have ideas on how we can improve the situation. Back to the gentleman that I was working with. Again, he's only had a couple of days to look at the numbers, but he believes that with a combination of restructuring of our debt and the benefit that's going to come from our upcoming tax reassessment, we could probably close the gap on the overspending that we currently have, and then status quo is fine. We need to do nothing. So I don't know where I am on the buzzer, so I'll just go ahead and summarize by saying this. 10 seconds.